Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for D&D today, we have the I'm Just a Woman with a Master's Degree That Loves Tacos mug, one of the oldest ones I've got, if not the one that I actually used in the first episode of this show ever. Felt like a good time to bring it back for the year anniversary that happened on Tuesday, but that's what we got here. Inside of it, we have not what I had the first time, but instead we have Shadowfell Slumber, which is really, really awesome. It's from, again, D&T. Love them. They've been really great. I really enjoy their stuff so far, and I highly recommend you check them out. Now, what you guys might be wondering is, you said you were going to do some kind of a weird giveaway thing for the 1 year anniversary. That's right. I'm still doing that. I promise. I'm just not pulling the name today because I did some research on it. I figured out that there were a couple problems. So instead, what we're going to do, because this is the final episode of Season 3 here, we are going to be pulling the winner at the pilot episode of Season 4. So what we are going to do, / what has already been put into place, is I went and I took a look. My most watched video, my most consumed episode has been the Grim Hollow Campaign Guide episode. You guys really like this one, and so what I'm going to do is I have ordered another copy of this. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to give it away. I'm going to send it to whoever it is that wins the pull when I go ahead and I pull that name. But what I need from you guys is, if you want to be entered into this giveaway, you need to be subscribed to this channel, and you need to make sure that your subscriptions are public on your channel profile. I have, at this point, 285 subscribers, and I can only see about 117 of you because the rest of you have your subscriptions on private. Unfortunately, that is really the only way for me to get it to one of my subscribers, and so on that day, I'm going to pull up the full list of people. I'm going to throw in a random number generator, 1 to whatever the number of people that have their public subscriptions on is, hit the button, and whatever number gets pulled is the number that is going to get this here lovely book. Not this one specifically, the one that I ordered. I'm really excited about it. I love this book. I'm glad that you guys like it a lot too. And so this is what we are giving away as part of the 1 year celebration. So subscribe and make sure your subscriptions are on live or public for that. It's going to be October 3rd is the day I'm pulling it. That's the first episode of Season 4. So make sure they're good to go on October 2nd, because that is when I'm going to be shooting that episode. Anyway, getting into what we are actually talking about today, something that I've been thinking about doing for a very long time here, the 5, in my opinion, baddest dragons in 5th edition. Just the dragons that are the scariest, the ones that I look at the stat block and I go, oh my god, those 5 dragons are the ones that we're going to be talking about today. Now, this is going to be in published 5th edition material only. There's not going to be third-party stuff in this, unfortunately, but that does mean that we are a little bit more restricted. I might do a full scope one at some point here, but we're doing the 5 officially published 5th edition ones here. So let's kick it off here with number 5. First up, we have Niv Mizzet from the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. If you don't know anything about this dragon, Niv Mizzet is a CR 26 monster. Big guy here. And the thing that really sort of throws this one into kind of crazy territory is the fact that it is a spellcaster with slots up to 9th level. Now, that 9th level spell is Prismatic Wall, so you can do a lot of damage with that, but it's not quite like Meteor Swarm to just absolutely bash people's heads in. But a dragon that can cast spells to begin with is terrifying. A dragon that can cast 9th level spells is even more terrifying. So that is a very, very important thing to note. The other thing about Niv is that so many of the features of his stat block revolve around his ability to cast spells. For example, he can use 3 legendary actions to regain a spell slot of 3rd level or lower, just because he wants to. He is able to change spells damage if it is an elemental type of damage between cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder. Crazy. And I've got it in front of me right now. It's actually not elemental damage. It's any damage. You can change it to any of the ones that I just listed. So that is kind of insane. Other than that, he is just very much a normal dragon with a 20th level spellcaster stacked on top, with something a little bit extra here. So I mentioned the ability to change out damage type. I mentioned the 9th level spells. The other thing, the big other thing here, on top of the breath weapons, the claws, the bites, the tails, the flying, all of that, Niv can maintain concentration on 2 different spells at the same time with advantage on the concentration checks to keep those spells going. That's insane, considering the Constitution saving throw on this thing is 17. That means that it is guaranteed to maintain concentration if you deal anything less than 36 points of damage to it. Guaranteed to maintain concentration. And from there, it goes up by 1 for every 2 additional points of damage. So you have to be dealing something like 50 points of damage to actually have a good shot at knocking the concentration off this thing. That is why it is a CR 26. That is why it is so high up on the list. The only reason that it falls at number 5 for me is the fact that it is otherwise just a normal dragon. It doesn't have the most hit points. It's got 370 hit points, whereas some of these other ones have way more than that. Its breath weapon doesn't do a crazy amount of damage compared to some other effects that can go with it. It is still a lot of fire damage, but fire damage is, you know, the most commonly resisted and all of that. And so much of it, as with a lot of spellcasters, is once you start chipping away at those spell slots, it goes down very quickly, in spite of the fact that there's a lot of spell slots there to beef with. However, 6th through 9th level spells, there is only 1 of each of them. So there's a little bit of, I don't even want to call it a handicap because it's not really a handicap, but there's a little bit of a cut there. The other thing with this is the same thing that happens with a lot of spellcasters. If you can't get both of those concentration spells off immediately, you're sort of stuck for a second while you try and get your setup done. And so it's just a matter of trying to make sure that you keep the things going. Plus, with 2 concentration spells running at the same time, you have to be conscious of what you want to keep, what you want to drop at different times. And it's just a little bit hard to keep track of. So it is difficult to run as a DM as well. Fair warning. However, it is also an insane, insane beast. All right. Second up, which means 4th on my list, we have Tanazir Quandrix. This is a CR 24 dragon from Strixhaven, Curriculum of Chaos. Now, the thing that really sort of gets me about this one, more than anything else, is that it is, at its core, a wizard. And I don't just mean a spellcaster, because it doesn't have all that much in terms of spellcasting when compared to something like Niv Mizzet. What it does have instead, though, is it has a lot of different flavor packed straight into it, and in its stat block directly is packed the wizard tag. Now, this guy here does have 444 hit points, which, if you do the math, is 74 more than our good friend Niv, which means that it's got a little more beef to it. Its Diminution Breath deals force and psychic damage that also then weakens other creatures, giving them disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws until the beginning of the next turn, as long as those rely on strength. So your up-close fighters are all going to be in a bad way when suddenly you are weakened in that capacity. The other thing that really sticks out to me with this one is that it is immune to force and psychic damage, which are the 2 pieces of damage in the game that are most commonly not resisted or immune to in any capacity, which means people will pack those spells. I pack those spells all the time because it is such a good damage type to have just sort of like in your back pocket. The other thing that I really like about this one that is just kind of, it makes it feel a little better to me, it's not entirely just another dragon. Yes, it's got bite, claw, etc. What it does have, though, is it has more flavor packed into things like its legendary actions. Good example, Fold Space. It uses teleport, and each other creature within 20 feet of the space she left must succeed on a DC 24 strength saving throw or be pulled 30 feet closer and take damage. That's really fantastic, considering that the teleport ability they're talking about is moving 100 feet away. Normally, dragons would have the oh my god, I'm blanking on what it's called. The beat the wings thing, where they beat their wings and they move half of their speed. This lets her teleport. Plus, it does force damage, and it really actually helps resituate the battlefield a lot better than just the wing attack movement thing does. And so it's that kind of thing packed in there that is not only flavor, but also gives it a little bit more tactical advantage than maybe some of the other dragons that you'll run into. Um, that is the reason that it lands at number 4 on my list. Number 3, we have Belladros Witherbloom. This is another CR24 dragon from Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did this one make number 3, whereas Quandrix was number 4? Well, let me tell you here. This one, again, 444 hit points. However, its armor class is technically one more at 22 instead of 21. And it is technically billed as a druid instead of a wizard. I love me a good druid. That's not really the point of that. It's just worth noting that this one is specifically billed as a druid. The damage immunities here are not force and psychic. They're instead necrotic and poison, which are way common types of damage that are actually resist a lot. So, you know, on that one. But that's not really the thing with this one for me. The thing with this one for me is the decaying breath that really seals the deal on this one. The withering breath is really great from Quandrix. The thing on this one is that the decaying breath not only deals necrotic damage and poison damage, but also makes it so you can't regain hit points until the start of its next turn. So Belladros' next turn is when you can start regaining hit points again. Anything that cuts off your ability to get more hit points is phenomenal. It is something that remaps the way that the game is played in the immediate time that we are sitting in. And the other thing with this one is that while Quandrix's thing only weakens if you fail, this one is anybody that is affected by the breath cannot regain hit points until the start of Belladros' next turn. That is fantastic. You just have to hit them with her in order for them to not be able to regain hit points. And that is crazy. Genuinely crazy. It's not something that happens in most other dragon breaths, because usually the save will negate all of the extra effects. So the fact that they have it built into this one is really, really good and really fantastic. Her movement thing, the wing attack thing, the teleport from Bellatrix, not from Bellatrix, the teleport from Quandrix for Belladros instead is called Miasmal Flow. There we go. She moves up to half her flying speed without provoking opportunity attacks. Very good. Resumes her true form because she turns into a cloud as she goes. And then during that move, she can move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. Creatures that she moves through have to succeed on a 23 con save or become poisoned until the end of its next turn, which is really good. Poison is a really phenomenal condition to be able to inflict on someone if you can get away with it. And that is something that player characters aren't necessarily always immune to. So that's a good one to be able to drop on, say, your barbarian when they're up in your face and you really need them to back off just a little bit here. So after number 3 here, we come to number 2, which is the Metallic Great Worms. Now, you might be asking yourself, why all Metallic Great Worms? It's because the Great Worms as a whole are not different from each other. The Great Worms of each type. The metallic ones are all the same, the chromatic ones are all the same, the gem ones are all the same. So they're not anything particularly special. They are literally a copy-paste stat block with a word here or there changed out just to make it so that they have the essence of what they were. So I'm looking at a gold Great Worm right in front of me right now. Its elemental breath deals fire damage as opposed to a silver one that would deal cold damage. So it's in there that makes it something a little bit more. The reason that they fall at number 2 for me is that they have a breath weapon called Sapping Breath. They exhale a 300-foot cone of gas. 300-foot cone of gas. Everyone in that area needs to make a DC 25 Constitution save or fall unconscious for a full minute. On a successful save, disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the end of the Great Worm's next turn. An unconscious creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect. If you fall unconscious, you lose concentration on anything. You immediately drop whatever you're holding. You immediately lose so much. You aren't reduced to 0 hit points, but just snapping unconscious makes you incapacitated with a couple of extra things on it, which is so good because The reality is that being unconscious is pretty much the worst thing you can have happen to you without being dead. And so the fact that it will just drop you if you can't hit a DC 25 Constitution save is insane. If you don't have proficiency in con saves, and you don't have a Paladin or Bless or anything like that on you, you have to hit a natural 20 with your Constitution at its max, if that is even possible for you. So that is why this CR 28 creature with 565 hit points lands this high. It is ludicrous to me. It is so good. Honestly, better than some of the aspects in different ways. That brings us to the end of number 2, which brings us to the honorable mention. There's one of them in this one. Technically, there should probably be more, but there's one that really sticks out to me. Before I get to number 1, I want to give the honorable mention to what is arguably my favorite creature in the entire game, the Elder Brain Dragon. Now, you might be asking yourself, why isn't this actually on the list? Technically, the Elder Brain Dragon is an aberration, which means that it doesn't get to be on the dragon list because it has to be on the aberration list. So, unfortunately, I have to drop it into the honorable mentions because otherwise this one genuinely might be my number 1 because it's that good. If you don't know about this one, CR22, 350 hit points, 17 armor class, really not great stats. What it does have going for it instead is its Tadpole Brine Breath, where it sprays a 120-foot line, 15 feet wide, and you have to make a DC 22 con save, take psychic damage, and then avoid being turned into a Mind Flayer. If you fail that, you are infested, and every turn you take psychic damage, and at the end of 3 turns, is that right? Anything that ends a curse, restores 40 hit points or more, the infested tadpoles are killed. It's not 3 turns. If you succeed 3 times, it ends the effect too. But if none of those things happen to you, and you are still infested and you are reduced to 0 hit points, which will happen very quickly, you turn into a Mind Flayer. That's crazy. You can turn into a mind. It turns you into a Mind Flayer. And then its legendary action, Shatter Concentration, is so good. It just ends the concentration on another spell. No, they haven't given it to anything else, as far as I am aware. I don't think I missed that somewhere. That is singularly such a good ability for 2 legendary actions. That's so good. And I highly recommend using this thing because, in spite of the fact that it will go down pretty quick, if it gets 1 breath weapon off and somebody fails, there is a clock on them all of a sudden. And there are different stakes going on than just this big thing in front of you. And I highly recommend throwing those stakes at your players. So, after all of that, we come to the number 1, in my opinion, baddest dragon to run into in 5th edition. And unfortunately, it is not nearly as exciting as I wanted it to be as I was looking through all of these. It's just not. The Gem Great Worm, in my opinion, is the craziest thing to run into. For one specific reason. It has everything that the metallic Great Worms have, with the exception of the fact that they can, instead of using some kind of an elemental weapon, elemental breath weapon, they can use the Gem Dragon breath weapon, which means there is a psychic one in there. Their other thing is mass telekinesis. After it has gone through and gained its mythic actions, it can target any number of creatures or objects within 120 feet of it, not weighing more than 4,000 pounds each. And they have to succeed on a DC 26 strength save or be restrained in the telekinetic grip. At the end of a creature's turn, it can repeat the saving throw, blah, blah, blah. That is one that you cannot get out of with a natural 20 if your strength is at 20 and you don't have proficiency in it. That is important here. You are required to have some kind of a boost to get out of it if you do not have proficiency in a strength save. At the end of each of the Great Worm's turns, it can move everything that it is holding onto around, however it wants to, up to 60 feet in any direction, but not past 120 feet of itself. And in addition, it can pick any number of creatures that are restrained in that way and crush them, dealing 7d12 force damage. Now, this doesn't require concentration. This doesn't require the Gem Dragon to do anything after its first use of it. All it requires is for it to continue to have turns. As long as it continues to have turns, it can crush and crush and crush and just make life really, really miserable for everything that it's holding on to. And again, you have to have some kind of a boost to get out of this grip, which makes it crazy. It makes it so crazy, in fact. I can't think of something that is better than that offhand because of the fact that it doesn't require concentration. So highly recommend taking a look at those and using those if you are ever running some kind of a dragon campaign, because they are a lot to deal with. But that is the top 5 list of the baddest dragons to run into in 5th edition, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. What are your favorites? Because these 6 technically, are crazy to me. I love them so much. I hope that I get to use them more. I love getting to play with giant, scaly monster guys. But that brings us to the end of that. So, going on to the shows that we have, I'm going to run through, starting today, do a full lap around the week because I want to make sure that I get everybody in there, and this schedule will probably continue until Season 4 picks up. So, today, Friday, we have Mayhem D&D, Off the Rails, Oxventure, Just Roll With It, The Strings of Fate, Rolling with Difficulty, World of Low, The Crown DM, and Coming Together Naturally, which I should be on at some point coming up soon. Tomorrow, Saturday, we have Dice Funk and Strange Hungers. Sunday, we have Super Idols, Roll For Your Life, Grinning Griffin, Dungeon Drunks, Library of Nightmares, The Chaos Brigade, Rise of the Forsaken, Chromatic Dice, The Stradcast, High Rollers, and Tabletop Notch. Looping back around to Monday, we have The Paper Dungeon, Chromatic Dice, Beyond the Realms, Unprepared Casters, Greetings Adventurers, Bards of New York, Hapless Heroes, Alien Adventures, Cast Party, 3 Black Halflings, Heller from the Magic Tavern, King Leo D&D, Anti-Heroes Anonymous, The Tabletop Tavern, Top of the Round, and League of Lady Adventurers. Tuesday, we have Diary of a Dragon Pit, Star Wars First Resistance, Dungeons and Daddies, Bombarded, Hekva D&D, Glass Cannon, and The Queer Questers. Wednesday, we have Dimension 20, Knocked Prone, Venture Maidens, Trials and Trebuchets, and Roll Out. And finally, Thursday, we have Critical Role, Authors and Dragons, NADPOD, and LGBT D&D. Let them know that I sent you, because again, someday somebody's going to say something to me about it, and I'm going to think that it's funny. But until then, enjoy yourselves. Thank you guys so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description. And don't forget, subscribe and make sure your subscriptions are on public so that you can be part of this whole giveaway here. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. Book. Anyway, that is everything I have to talk to you guys about today. So don't forget, thank you for a wonderful Season 3. I will see you on October 3rd for Season 4. But don't forget, everybody. Drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.